on LinkedIn's part. LinkedIn just having tech issues on LinkedIn's end. They just told us that. So so what do you think now, Karina? We should move ahead, and I'm going to log back into my extraordinary women influencers. And so we want to see them come on. And so I'm going to go live on with our extraordinary women influencers. So if you're a member of that group, you can join with that live broadcast. Seems as though we're having some challenges all over. And it could be the internet connection. But, you know, we're going to get started because so many of you have been here. I appreciate you coming. We're assuming that you're here and that you'll be able to join us shortly if you're not already here. But I needed to come and talk to you about nonprofits today because what's happening in nonprofits is really upsetting. And I want to share, because here's what we know, that right now, too many nonprofit leaders are lying awake at 2:00 in the morning, wondering if they're going to make payroll. And the numbers back it up. You know, we know that 86% of organizations are facing rising costs from inflation. And another 75% say managing those expenses is their top challenge. And more than a third ended last year in the red. Now, for nonprofit leaders, this isn't abstract. Programs are shutting down. Staff paychecks are on the line. Communities are without services. And, you know, I know that pressure firsthand. For years, I've served as CEO of several multi-million-dollar nonprofits, and one night stands out to me. I was at my kitchen table at 2:00 in the morning, running the numbers again and again and again. And even with 30 years of experience, I still had to tell my board the next morning we might have to cut a program serving 10,000 kids, and that my staff could miss a payday. Now, that night told me a big truth. Financial resilience is not optional. And here in 2025, it's more urgent than ever. I've spent more than 30 years in nonprofit leadership. I've secured over $100 million across my career, built organizations from scratch, helped a statewide executive director raised $6 million. And all along the way, Crain's recognized me as one of Michigan's most notable women in nonprofits. And here's the point. Experience matters, but strategy is what keeps you standing. That's why today I'm sharing 5 proven strategies that make the difference between scrambling in panic and leading with confidence. So before we dive in, I want you to put a 1 in the chat if you've ever felt that funding pressure, and I'll circle back to your comments during the Q&A. So let's just check in before we get started. What's happening on TikTok and my Facebook Extraordinary Women Influencers. We are not connecting with them, so I want to do it. Are we live on LinkedIn? So I know we're here on TikTok. Okay. All right. So you can hear me. Great. All right. Oh, okay, Dr. Chin, thank you. I appreciate hearing that so much. Um, okay. So let me just recalibrate what we're doing. We're talking about nonprofits today. I want to focus on drill down on that leadership. As you know, this channel is all about midlife reinvention and leadership, especially for women who are in those leadership positions and are in midlife. I wanted to really drill down and focus on nonprofits today, whether you're a staff in a nonprofit agency, leading a nonprofit, or maybe you're a board member or you serve on a committee with a nonprofit. These kinds of conversations are so important. I want to share what it takes for us as a nonprofit. So I'm going to share 5 strategies that work for nonprofits. So starting with strategy number 1, which is really very, very simple. Plan for the rain, not just the sunshine. Yes. Now, in practice, what that means is building a real crisis management plan before you need one. Here's what I've seen in nonprofit leadership. Too often, we lead like it's a game of chance instead of a strategy. Most organizations don't have a documented crisis plan, they just cross their fingers. And I can tell you from experience, that's not enough when the storm hits. Here's what works instead: list your biggest risk honestly. If this grant disappears, if this ED resigns, plan your moves, have reserve funds, know your calls to your donors that you'll make, emergency campaigns, know exactly who to call first, what to do. Do board training as part of crisis preparation. We know that financial literacy by board members is so important. And the research now emphasizes the need for financially literate boards as one of the key components to helping a nonprofit thrive. Set clear communication protocols. Who speaks? What can they say? How to calm fears without panic. Over the years, I've seen boards respond very differently, really depending on whether or not their leader shows up with a plan or with nothing. Preparation turns fear into partnerships. And that's what a crisis plan makes possible. So type yes in the chat if you're with a nonprofit, leading a nonprofit, or sit on the board of a nonprofit and you have a crisis plan. Having those plans helps you plan for the sunshine and the rain. Because clearly, if you run in a nonprofit or involved with a nonprofit, you're going to have both. Strategy number 2: diversity or risk. Now, I'm talking about creating a true financial safety net. So you're not one grant or donor away from shutting down. This becomes so critical that you must have a financial strategy net, safety net with your organization. And I'm really talking about creating that kind of financial safety net so you're not one grant or donor away from shutting down. When I launched my national nonprofit, I had 5 foundations lined up for 5 years. That sounds great, right? But I had already seen too many organizations close when their main funder or funders pulled out. That's why, in spite of that glorious philanthropic committed support over multi years, which you don't really hear a lot of, my team and I spent and invested significant time in soliciting other funders to join. Now, here's the brutal truth. When 60% of your budget comes from one or two sources, you're just one phone call away from collapse. You are. And when that happens, it's not your mission that just suffers, it's the people who you serve who need you. That's why true stability comes from building 5 pillars, not just one. And this is what, when I give assistance to nonprofits, I'm always looking for these 5 pillars of financial support. One is broad-based individual giving. Individuals, people giving you money. And I think of this as your grassroots foundation. It kind of builds your nonprofit. Monthly donors who are giving $25 or $50 might not seem big, but when you have hundreds of them, they create steady, predictable income you can count on. Secondly, major donors. Now, these major donors are the people you build real relationships with. You're not just sending them an annual letter. When you keep them connected to your impact, they'll stand by you through the ups and downs. 3, grants, and not just one kind. Healthy organizations spread their grants across local, family, corporate, private foundations, and national and government funders. So you have several grants coming from several different sources. So if one dries up, the others keep you afloat. Earned income. This means generating your own revenue, whether through training programs, memberships, consulting, or social enterprises that fit your mission. It's money you control, not money you wait on. And finally, planned giving. And I don't see a number of my nonprofits out there really investing the time and energy in developing a solid planned giving program, because you want to plant those trees, those seeds now. Even if the gifts don't come in right away, planned giving ensures that long-term sustainability. 5, 10 years from now, you'll be grateful that you started a planned giving program today. So the point of all this isn't to abandon what's working for you. It's to make sure one no doesn't sink your entire ship. The ship. So, I want you to put in the chat, what percentage of your budget is tied to your top funder? Don't be ashamed. You can tell me, just we'll keep it just between us, but drop that number in the chat. And listen, DM me the word resilient, RESILIENT, and let's talk about how to strengthen your funding safety net. If you're recognizing your organization in these challenges, I want you to know that the next 3 strategies are what separate nonprofits that just survive from those that emerge stronger. So strategy number 3, make your budget move with you. Oh, what you talking about, Dr. Geneva? Most nonprofits are still budgeting like it's 2019. before COVID. And that's why 36% of nonprofits today ended last year in the red. I was interim leader of a community program when COVID hit. So overnight, our entire community-based model disappeared and we had to pivot. But because we had built flexibility in our planning, we were able to pivot and come out stronger. Here's the truth. While most organizations create one budget in January and cross their fingers, the ones that survive build budgets that actually respond to reality and the changes that are happening. And so here's what smart organizations do differently. They plan for 80%, not 100% of their dollars. Don't budget every promised dollar. Research shows us that funding isn't keeping pace with cost. So assume that you'll get about 80% of what's pledged. The organization still standing plan for disappointment. And then I want you to create 3 budget scenarios, not one. So you got your best case, a realistic case, and the crisis case. So that when trouble hits, you have a roadmap instead of panic. Most nonprofits are scrambling to, deal with their cuts under pressure. If you develop a scenario-based budgeting system, best case, worst case, likely case, playing out those scenarios, you'll already know exactly where to trim. The other thing that goes along with this that I want you to do is to check your numbers monthly and adjust quarterly. The research is clear on this, and so is the practice. Organizations who are still doing annual budgets, and then that's it, are setting themselves up for failure. In an environment where federal grants can disappear overnight, and we know that's true, quarterly reviews aren't optional anymore. They're survival. And I tell nonprofits, leaders to be watching that money on a monthly basis and then make sure that you have the ability to adjust your budget. And the other thing is cash flow beats promises every time. Listen to me, a pledge letter isn't cash until the money hits your account. And with grant delays becoming the norm, timing matters. So you got to keep an eye on your cash all the time, you and your CFO. The bottom line, too many nonprofits are budgeting like the world is predictable. The smart ones budget like it's not. That's a lesson that is so critical for us to learn, for you to learn in the nonprofit world, that unpredictability is the norm. Uncertainty is what's happening now. So let me just ask you, put in the chat yes and no if you're still budgeting like it's 2009. Again, it'd be a secret just between you and me. So strategy number 4 that I want to leave with you so that you can make sure that your organization not just survives, but thrives, is build trust before you need it. That means transparency, oversight, and real financial accountability so that your board and partners stand with you in tough times. I remember early in my career, I made the mistake of trying to quietly fix financial problems on my own. Keeping it quiet, trying to figure out the numbers, working internally with my CFO or the financial people on staff, and just being quiet about it. And, part of it was, well, I can do this, proving my leadership. Let me tell you, that backfired. And I learned the hard way that hiding struggles only erodes trust. What changed everything was when I walked into a board meeting and decided to just lay out the truth. No excuses, no spin, just the reality and a plan. So laying out what was going on, telling the real deal with solution, with a plan. That's what separates us as leaders, okay? From the okey doke leaders to great ones. We come in not just with the reality, just with the board leaned in. Related, they ask good questions. We're going to give board members the financial literacy they need so that they aren't just rubber stamping reports. So you want to train them. You want to have a development program that includes not just how to be a good board member, but also how to be a financially literate board member. Okay. You want to tighten your internal controls. Now, no one person should hold all the keys. Financial checks and balances protect everyone. You want to have an active finance committee, not a committee in name only, one that actually meets and probes the numbers. And so you want volunteers who are financially literate on your finance committee. And you want to interact and engage with that committee, especially the chair of that committee, on a regular, frequent basis. So you figure out how you do that, and you want to lay out what's going on a day-to-day basis. And don't view this as micromanagement because we don't want volunteers. You don't want volunteers to manage your organization, but you do want them to look at the numbers, be aware of what's happening, hear what you're forecasting, what you're identifying as issues, solutions, and give you feedback and be engaged in the process as a partner. Another thing is you want to be proactively transparent. You want to share both the struggles and solutions. And hey, leaders who learn how to do this earn trust before a crisis ever happens. Now, get this one right, and every other strategy you do becomes easier. Trust isn't built in the middle of a crisis, it's built long before. Strategy number 5, turn donors into true partners. Don't treat them like ATMs. Invite them into the mission so that they stay with you through every storm. When things got bumpy for me, I learned to go straight to donors, not to hide problems, but to invite partnerships. The ones who stayed weren't just writing checks, they were invested in the mission itself. So here's what that looks like. You want to communicate year round. Share your wins, your challenges, your stories, not just an annual report. You want to make your communication personal. A handwritten note or real conversation goes further than another email blast. You want to frame every ask around outcomes. This is one of the most challenging things that nonprofit leaders need to get better at. And that is everything you talk about, everything you do, it's about how you change lives, the impact that you're having. You want to talk, your language needs to be outcome language. Donors don't just, the donors don't fund overhead, they fund impact. Even when you're asking for funds to fix a boiler, finding the language that really shows how if you keep the boiler on, the building will be heated. And because you serve so many seniors and you're bringing them in so that they can learn how to live independently, you want to talk about that in terms of getting your boiler fixed. And we know that even now, philanthropy is starting to look much closer at funding overhead, helping nonprofits in different ways, given the current economic landscape. Even then, even if they're going to give you some money for those administrative costs, you still want to talk outcomes because donors don't fund overhead, they fund impact. Show them the lives changed. Okay. When donors feel like partners, not paychecks, they don't just give, they show up, they stay, and they help carry the mission forward. So I'd like you to put in the chat, what's one thing you do now to make donors feel like partners? Let me know and we'll take a look at it in the Q&A. So here's what I know after more than 3+ decades in nonprofit leadership. You need to plan for the rain, not or risk collapse. You need to make your budget move with you and the reality. You need to build trust before you need it, and you need to turn donors into true partners. Financial storms are going to keep coming. If you're in nonprofit, they'll be there right with you. You're going to have that. You'll have the beauty and the joy of helping people and creating impact, and you'll have the challenges of the storms. And that's what we're facing now. But with the strategies I've laid out for you, you don't have to face those challenges in panic. You can face them with confidence. So I want you to imagine walking into your next board meeting knowing your funding is already weatherproofed. That's the shift I help leaders make every day. And if you'd like me to work with your board or your staff or you in putting these strategies into action, DM me the word resilient. We'll start the conversation. Because that 2 a.m. in the morning panic, it doesn't have to be your story anymore. DM me resilient and let's make sure of it. So those are the lessons and tips and strategies I wanted to leave with you today. Let's see what comments that we have, who's with us, and welcome again to everyone. And I'm so delighted to see you. I understand Chris is here too. We said hello to Elaine, and thank you for all of you who were giving me the information to let me know that our stream was working. And so I understand, we started a little late because of our technical difficulties, but I think we have time for perhaps one question. Hey, Feminine Guru. I'm glad you didn't miss the live. I'm glad you're here. Okay, here's a good one. How Okay, I see folk are asking about the crisis management plan. How do you do it? How do you fix it? Listen, how do you put one together? Listen, DM me, talk to me. We can make it work. I can help you with that. You need a crisis management plan. We talked today about a financial management plan. That's a crisis, one that you can use in crisis. As a nonprofit leader or volunteer working with nonprofit staff leadership, having a crisis management plan to deal with so many different things that can and will happen in nonprofits is just a smart move. So use these strategies I've given you about the money. Now, this is a good question, and I'm going to do a short answer with it, because if this is really one of the issues that you have, you need to talk with me. Just DM me and let's have a conversation. But the question is, how transparent should we be about financial challenges with our board and donors without inspiring concern or panic? I get it. And let me tell you, I've been on this journey. I shared with you, I used to keep everything close to the chest because, well, not only I didn't want to cause panic, I didn't want to have volunteers, board members, donors lose confidence in me. So those are real concerns that we have, you have, as leaders. I get it, but that's just it's first of all, it's short term. It's not a strategy, it's not long term, and it doesn't pay off for you in the long term. It's important for you to enter into the leadership role with the imperative that trust building is what I have to do, and get on that journey. When you're on that journey, it's scary at first, but doing it makes all the difference in the world. So that's one of the ways that you avoid folk getting panicked or concerned. And then you show up with solutions and a plan, and you articulate and talk about outcomes. So if you put those pieces together as a leader, your board, your donors, you'll build the relationship with them where they can trust you, they know you, they're confident in your leadership, so that when stuff happens, because it will, and it gets funky, because it will, you'll be coming forward, you'll be stepping forward, and people know you. People know, they'll guess that, well, this is a tough situation, but I know Susan will handle it because and then they'll be able to list off those attributes, and they'll be able to reflect on past things that you did, and how they can rely on you. So building that trust and going through perhaps some small fires, which is part of it, makes a difference. But you've got to take the risk to be authentic and vulnerable. And just because you lay out problems or issues, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. In fact, that's the right thing to do with leadership, because leaders identify problems and issues, they forecast and think about and put out and articulate various scenarios and ways to deal with things and alternatives. And they put together those implementation plans, and they do that with an air of confidence. So when you develop that package of yourself and your own leadership, and you're authentic and comfortable with your leadership, your volunteers won't panic or be concerned. Or if they do, it would be just for a moment, because then you're going to step in and you're going to solve the issues. Okay, it's been such a delight being here with you. So sorry. Oh, wrong glasses. These are the glasses that can see today. Okay. I think that's it. There are lots of other questions I see here. Perhaps I'll do another video. Thank you so much for you being here. Next week, we're off. It's the holiday week. Whenever there's Monday holiday, I take that Wednesday off. So I'll see you. Oh, Karina, next 10th. We'll see you 2 weeks from today. Look forward to it. Everyone have a terrific Labor Day weekend, and take care.